Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So here I'm in Greenwich, London. Now behind me you can see this White House, number 62 Crooms Hill. And this is where Benjamin Waugh lived for quite a few years, from the 1860s onwards. He did live at a number of other London addresses. Anyway, Benjamin Waugh, he's best known for founding the, first of all, the London Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. It was later turned into the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. So he was born in Settle, Yorkshire, and in that small town his father was a saddle maker. So they were, I suppose lower middle class. A lot of people were unskilled labourers. They're better off than most. He at least got to go to school, which not everybody did in those days. He was born in 1839. So he didn't follow in his father's footsteps. He was brought up in one of the non-conformist churches. I'm not sure which one, but Benjamin Waugh. Incidentally, the surname in Northern England is, I believe, pronounced Woof, as in a dog says woof woof. But he's commonly called Waugh, like Evelyn Waugh, to whom he was not related, I believe. Although I have heard people say that Waugh actually comes from Scotland. Anyway, so then he went to a theological college in Bradford, and he was ordained a minister in the Congregationalist Church. So he ran a parish in Newbury in Berkshire, and later on he moved to London. And it was the metropolis was burgeoning back then. But although it was the wealthiest city in the world, there was a great deal of privation. And when he came here, he was horrified by the conditions that some of the children were in. Some of them were abandoned, which are street children, and it wasn't just the orphans who were doing badly. Some children had abusive parents, parents who wouldn't bother feeding them, would spend all the money on alcohol, who beat them up and things like that. They walk around discalced, wearing rags, all the rest of it. And there was also emotional abuse, being grossly insulted all the time. And remember, in those days, parents could do what they wanted to their children so long as they didn't actually kill them. There was really no limit to what could be done. I remember an old man in Ireland telling me that in the late 1940s, he and his brother were fighting, so his father horsewhipped them both. You heard that correctly, horsewhipped them. And of course, you wouldn't have gone to the guards, that's the police. I mean, if they had heard, they would have said, nothing we can do. Reasonable chastisement is allowed within the law. And only about the year 2000, the stepfather caned his 12-year-old stepson, and he was charged here with, what would it be, assault, but then found not guilty. That was reasonable chastisement. Now, the definition of reasonableness has obviously evolved over the years. What would the man of the Clapham omnibus say? And there was a notorious case in the 1860s where a schoolteacher beat his schoolboy to death, saying, well, it's his fault for being so lackadaisical. Remember, in state schools, corporal punishment was allowed into the 1980s, in independent schools to 1998. Although, having said that, by 1998, virtually all of them had abolished it. So Waugh said something's got to be done about this, is unacceptable, and he realised that juvenile delinquents were put into prisons with adults, where these just became universities of crime. It was very difficult to turn back on this. Sometimes they were abused, they were molested by adults in prison, and it was something which just wasn't spoken about. So could we not separate them from the adults, treat them more leniently, hopefully reform them? The younger they are, the greater the chance there is for rehabilitation. They're really victims of circumstance. These children, sometimes just stealing to stay alive, being led into it, these ductile children by adults, and know no other life. So we have to allow them a way back. So he got other people interested in it, and he set up a society. Eventually, Queen Victoria was patron. He was the first president of the society. He had branches all over Great Britain and eventually Ireland. But I thought it was eventually the Royal Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Children. But anyway, I was reading about NSPCC. In Ireland, obviously, it's the Irish Society, the National Society. I can't remember. So he is setting up cruelty men all around to try and prevent this happening, and saying, reasonable chastisement does not beat them half to death. He was not in principle opposed to corporal punishment, but it had to be limited, and it had to be for severe offences. It couldn't be for something trifling. In those days, it would be for the tiniest misdemeanor, or just getting the answer wrong at school, be hit around the face no matter how young you were. These assaults he thought was quite shocking. There he was preaching about love and compassion, and Jesus saying, suffer the little children to come unto me, and yet some clergy thought it was absolutely acceptable to beat a child black and blue just for not being the brightest at whatever subject. Remember, many clergy were teachers back in those days. So he lived at Blackheath, which is just south of here. There really is a heath, as in a raised area of rough, undulating land that's unsuitable for ploughing. That's what a heath is, with thin, stony soil. So he lived there for a while, not too far from his church, because I'm not sure if that was his church, but that was the one's a Catholic one, I'm pretty sure. There's a blue plaque, but that's on 26 Crooms Hill, which is a mistake. They found out it should be 62, but they haven't shifted it to here. He retired to Southend-on-Sea, where he died very early in the 20th century. He was married, he had 12 children, so he knew a lot about child welfare from that. So that is the redoubtable Benjamin Waugh. So please follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Book online lessons with me in history, politics, religious studies, French, law, and so forth. Choose me as your tour guide in London. And what else? I translate from French, Spanish, Italian, German, Romanian, and Russian, and particularly legal documents. So let me help you with your essay, your dissertation, thesis, or whatever it may be. Toodaloo.